Back with us, Dave. There's something unusual happened during this Todd Blanche meeting.
Just one unusual
Not
thing?
just one, but it's unusual for when this thing happened, and it's at the very beginning of their meeting. Listen to this.
Good. Okay, so before we started recording, we met for a few minutes. I introduced myself, and we chatted, and now I told you that we were going on the record. And before we start asking questions, I know that you've been given by your lawyer a copy of what's called a proffer agreement, and I just want to spend 2 minutes making sure that you understand what governs our conversation today. The most important part of this agreement is that this isn't a cooperation agreement, meaning that by you meeting with us today, we're really just meeting. I'm not promising to do anything.
So, Dave, I wanted to play that because I'm not an attorney, but what jumped out at me is the very first few words he says. Good. Okay. So before we started recording, we met for a few minutes. I introduced myself, and we've chatted. Is that unusual? Am I being conspiratorial in thinking, why is the president's personal lawyer, who is now the #2 official at DOJ, talking to someone before they start recording? And if it's I could understand a few seconds. Hey, Dave, nice to meet you. Hit record. But a few minutes for a few minutes?
It might have been just small talk, or it could have been something more, but it doesn't matter. I mean, really, she got sent to a minimum security prison afterwards, Club Fed, right? There's a pardon being dangled. So if you want conspiracy theories, they got a lot of ammunition for it. The fact that they talked in advance beforehand, yeah, I mean, sure. But remember, he said in here that we're not doing this for purposes of an investigation. We just want to hear from you. So the cat's already out of the bag. This was done to try to help Donald Trump, but it's not going to satisfy the base. All this stuff is really nonsense when the base wants the Epstein files. This doesn't move the needle.
Yeah. Really quickly, something that we try to focus on, at least on our show, is the survivors, right? And there was a statement from Brittany Henderson, an attorney for many of them, on Friday. And Brittany Henderson writes, Ghislaine Maxwell was federally indicted on 2 perjury counts as a result of her testimony during her civil deposition. Having been convicted of sex trafficking, she is now in jail, presumably hoping that she will receive a pardon from President Trump. I can't imagine that her testimony will be given much weight by anyone with any knowledge whatsoever of her involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, one of the things, and we've had survivors on who've had Gretchen Carlson, who works with a lot of them on our air, and the thing that we don't hear from the White House a lot, at least I don't hear, maybe you hear more than I do, is about the survivors, right? Because they could highlight the survivors, because at the end of the day, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein are convicted of doing these things to these who at the time were girls.
And that's been very striking, that the White House has been much more focused on perceptions around President Trump and clearing him of any kind of wrongdoing. And to your point, they could at the same time underscore that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted on these charges and that Ghislaine Maxwell is no innocent bystander here. Right. She was herself very active and convicted on sex trafficking charges of finding and recruiting and grooming underage girls who went on to be abused. You know, I think what was also telling, just really quickly about this interview, was there was a point where Blanche said, you know, if I think you're not being honest or that if you're missing something, I'm not going to, this isn't got you. Right? So this just kind of reinforced that this is not some fact-finding mission here, right? Then he also complimented her for participating in the interview and said, we'll be in touch soon. So this really just kind of coming back to your point, appears to be an exercise by the White House to do away with the pressure that President Trump has been facing by also making clear that he has nothing to do really with any of this. And I think, you know, if they want to try and exonerate the president, that's their prerogative. But you could at the same time really emphasize what it was that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did and highlight everything that the victims suffered due to their crimes.
I love that. We'll be in touch soon. So soon she was moved to Club Fed. Dave, NBC has a story with the perfectly stated headline, Can Ghislaine Maxwell be trusted to tell the truth about Jeffrey Epstein? And they quote prosecutors, what prosecutors wrote in a pretrial motion. You see it there on the screen. The defendant's willingness to brazenly lie under oath about her conduct, including some of the conduct charged in the indictment, strongly suggests her true motive has been and remains to avoid being held accountable for her crimes. So, given that knowledge, and I know ranking member of House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, Congressman Garcia, he also pointed that out, that Ghislaine Maxwell is not only a convicted child sex trafficker, she's a convicted perjurer. So, again, why should we believe anything that we have played from her interview, her meeting with Todd Blanche?
Yeah, she says the sky is blue. I'm going outside to check.
You don't have to go outside. Just
you know why she's never named names? It's because she's never admitted she was involved in anything untoward, inappropriate. She said under oath in a deposition from 2016 that she's never seen Jeffrey Epstein act inappropriately with any underage girls. Really? That's why she was charged by the Trump administration in 2020 for perjury. 2 counts. Now, eventually the counts were tossed because they moved on to bigger charges. They decided not to pursue them. But the Trump administration back then determined that she was a liar. Today, she's saying the same thing in the interview with Todd Blanche. She didn't see anyone do anything inappropriate, and they're believing her.
Yeah. And here we are. We will continue to cover this because David Ehrenberg and Sabrina Siddiqui, they will be leaving us, though. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Still ahead, warning signs. Fed Chair Jerome Powell suggests interest rates could drop soon. But